Sulphur was exported from Iceland from the beginning of the 12th century. It was used in the production of wine in southern Europe. The barrels were disinfected with sulphur before the wine was poured in. However, the great demand for sulphur only really began in the 14th century, when Europeans started their own serious production of gunpowder and firearms. The sulphur was sold in different qualities. 1 barrel of unwashed sulphur was equal to 1 barrel of flour, or 30 fish. A barrel of washed sulphur equaled 2 barrels of flour, or 60 fish. And 1 barrel of melted sulphur, the highest quality, equaled 3 barrels of flour, or 90 fish. In 1350, the monk, Francesco Petrarch, wrote about the first cannons that were then appearing on the battlefields of Europe. These instruments that fire balls of metal followed by enormous bangs and tongues of fire were very rare a couple of years ago and looked upon with great wonder and admiration. Now they are just as common as all other kinds of weapons. So fast and ingenious is the human brain to learn even the most difficult form of art. Modern historians have always looked upon the first cannons as not very effective, and having only a very small effect, only useful for scaring enemies with their loud bangs. It is true that the mechanical weapon of war, the trebuchet, were used well into the 15th century before they were replaced by gunpowder weapons. However, modern experiments with early medieval cannons and gunpowder made from recipes from the same period, conducted at the medieval centre in Nykoping, Falster, have shown that these first cannons were highly efficient. It is known today that the Europeans quickly learned how to make use of gunpowder in an efficient way. It is also clear that these early gunpowder recipes are very similar to modern ones. It took some time for these new gunpowder weapons to take their place on the battlefield, probably not because soldiers didn't know how to use this new weapon, but possibly because the medieval gunners had difficulty in ensuring sufficient quantities of the raw materials for gunpowder production, in particular the saltpeter and sulphur. Gunpowder weapons began increasingly to dominate warfare. Medieval craftsmen built highly efficient, large-caliber weapons which had frightening powers of destruction, fueling a demand in Europe for saltpeter and sulphur for gunpowder production. Modern wars could not be fought without it, and he who had gunpowder and cannons, preferably large quantities of both,